got a question for possibly both of you, depends on who wants to answer it, in two parts. Now, I'm not going to talk about the last 2 weeks of your pregnancy. This is going to be everything leading up to it. What are you the most, I don't know, negative word, unhappy, disappointed, angry at yourself for believing? What was something she said that you feel sincere regret about believing and can't believe that you actually said, sure, whatever?
I have a lot. Mine's, I feel like when my mom was at her house, and at this point I was like 41 weeks probably. And my mom was like, is she going to go to the doctor, like go to the hospital and get induced? And they got into a big thing about induction. I wish that would have been the moment that when we got in the car to leave, that I would have just told my mom, you know what? This lady sucks. Like, let's just go to the hospital and go check ourselves in, because now we're overdue, and just be like, give me whatever doctor you got. You know, I mean, that was right there was a big thing, but I mean, there was so many probably moments right up at the end, especially that I noticed things even before we got to that last end part. There was stuff before that she was pregnant. And so I excused it as if she was pregnant, like, oh, she's going through some things. She's pregnant and trying to work kind of thing. But the reality is there was stuff that made me a little bit, that gave me like a bad feeling, like a bad vibe about her. But I was like, well, I'm already in. And at this point, I'm literally about to have my baby. Like, I'm like, it was the last month of having my baby. It's like, I don't have anybody else, which I think is also another thing that people don't think about, is we're so isolated from being at home. We don't have a doctor to call. Like, who are you going to call and be like, by the way, I'm 40 weeks pregnant. Like, you know, I've been getting care from this person this whole time, and I think they suck, and I would like to go see someone else. So it's like, there's no one, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know. So I think not having that option that held me back from my own thoughts that was already in my head. And then when we just got to the end point and we went and had the ultrasound, and she was like, baby's terrific and everything's fine, you just don't have any fluid. And I'm like, what does that mean? The moment that she pulled the whole like buffalo, like you're just going through the natural, normal crap of childbirth, is the moment that I should have just pulled and just been like, I'm done. I'm so tired of you not giving me an answer, that I should have just left. But I really believed what she had to say. And she kept like backing it up. That's the worst thing about it. I went to an ultrasound. She was backing up what she was telling me by, hey, drink a bunch of water and I'm going to send you back in a few hours or whatever. And so I did what she said. So, I mean, that really, and then that evening that she finally got us in wasn't busy anymore, but it was like, there was just no sense of urgency going overdue. There was no sense of urgency of those last, hours. But yet at the same time, she sent me home with a Doppler to check my baby every couple hours. So if there was no sense of urgency, like, hey, we don't have to go in, why would you send me home with a Doppler to check my kid every couple hours? But it was just like all these mind tricks of like, oh, you're scared because you're a first-time mom. And that's what she did. Anytime that I questioned the system of home birth or question anything, like something's going on, I don't know, she would just say, you're a first-time mom. Because when I went to my 41-week appointment, she said, how are you feeling? And I said, I feel like I'm going to keep this baby forever. And I'm never going to have this baby. It's just going to stay in my body forever and ever. And she's like, oh, you're a first-time mom. And my mom was like, that's not normal. I've had 5 kids and I've never thought I'm going to keep my kid in there forever. So that should have been a sign that I was thinking, I'm not going into labor. That was my body telling me I'm not going into labor. If we're supposed to trust our instincts like they tell us at home, that was me saying, or my baby, whichever you want to take, one of us was saying, you're not going to go into labor and you need to get help. And she told us at that appointment, natural induction does not work. the only way to be induced is medically at the hospital. And even then, it might not work out for people. That's what she told us. But then after 42 weeks, and then after all these ultrasounds, she's like, here, take some cohosh, take blah, 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 do this. We're going to do, this is the plan. Cohosh, castor oil, blah, 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 da, da, da. She had this plan. So it was like, it was just like normal. That's how it was treated. It was like everything was normal. And I wish if I could go back to anything, is all that time before we even got up to the end point, I just trusted that gut feeling of myself of like, something is wrong, something is off. She's not telling me the truth. And that in thing when she was sending us off and like, here, take this herbal stuff, here, go do this, here, go do this. I wish I would have just been like, you know what? Let's just go to a doctor. Let's just go to any doctor, just start making phone calls and call a hospital and been like, which is another thing I wish I would have known about because I did not know that you can just walk into labor and delivery. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you can go into any hospital that has a labor delivery department and just walk in and say, I'm pregnant and I need help. And that they will help you. I didn't know that because if I did, I would have walked in or I at least would have made a phone call and said, this is what's happening. I don't understand. She's not giving me any answers. And I wish out of anything that that's what I would have done because you think about all the time. And even if I missed it through January and February, we still were looking at over 24 hours before my kid was born. He wasn't born until after 3 p.m. So you're talking about all these hours that I spent of my kid just hanging out, you know? And so it's like, if any point in there, that's my biggest thing is I wish I just didn't believe the illusion of the person that she was. I wish I wouldn't have believed, you don't need to go to the hospital. Everything's fine. I wish I would have not believed that and just trusted that gut instinct of the whole night where I felt we didn't sleep. Me and him did not sleep because I was like, something is wrong. And she's just not telling me. And I wish I would have won it. That's my biggest thing. Like, even if I think of like, you know, if I regret my home birth or regret getting a midwife or regret being conned in all that way, the biggest thing is those in moments of all that time that was just wasted because somebody's ego got in the way and couldn't just say, you know what? I don't know. That's all she needed to say. And honestly, the first message that I ever wrote to her after time had gone by and I found out what had really happened. The first message I ever said to her, I said, you know what? You could have been the hero of the story. You could have been the hero. You could have just said, I'm not sure, but hey, let me take you over to this hospital, check in with that. And I'll be there the whole time holding your hand, no matter what happens. But I was like, but instead you turned out to be the villain because you made choices that wasn't about my best interest, wasn't about my baby. It was about you. It was about, like Adam just said, keeping those numbers. They got to keep you at home. They got to have those babies at home, you know, and like, they got to keep that reputation. And so it wasn't about us and safety and care. It's about them. So that's my biggest regret other than meeting her ever, but it wouldn't have made probably a difference. Maybe if I had another midwife, it would have been, who knows, another experience because they're not very good. And they all kind of seem the same. So I can't even say it's just her. I just think those in things I should have trusted myself and not trusted someone else. It's a con artist. A mid-con. So
Adam, your turn.
So I will say there were two that struck out. The first thing was, I think in those situations, I think the biggest thing I regret was there was one moment at like the end of January, we went with our mother to the meeting. Our mom had a lot of questions. And then afterwards, she wanted to see us down the road. She met us down the road from the midwife's place and was yelling at both of us that we should not trust her. And we didn't listen. We thought our mom was just being a little overprotective. And I think it comes down to, and I you know, my mother will be pleased to hear that any mother would, that you should listen to your mother. I think that was the biggest regret was you could see it in her face. She was not happy. And if she could have, she would have punched the midwife right there. And that was just meeting the midwife. I think that was the first meeting that they actually had. where she was like, this is insane. And that was one regret I had, and that is listen to your mother during all of that, especially when it comes down to a baby, because clearly she had you. And I don't know, I think being truthful with yourself, that things don't turn out the way that you want. Things do malfunction, and it's a part of life. And I think as I was younger, I was very naive, and that was the moment I lost hope. Because I'm very optimistic on a lot of things, and I believe that this woman could do no wrong, because it was, she talked you into it. It was not one of those things. But like Danielle mentioned, the final night that she went home with the Doppler was I spoke to Danielle for 7 hours on the phone, and I all throughout the night, and was literally just telling jokes and telling her nice little messages, and repeating the things that were told to us, that this is just something that's going to happen. And hopefully what you want is to be hopeful that this will be an experience that you'll never forget, in the nice sense, in the happy sense. And instead I should have been like, get in the car, go. And it's a live and learn experience. I would say don't take medical problems, pregnancy, anything, hurt, wrist, anything, lightly. Take it seriously, no matter what it is. If you feel that something's wrong, if you feel that something's not right, get it checked out. You're not insane. It's not a thing that you should take lightly, and many people do, and that was just one of those cases. Don't take anything medically lightly, and listen to your mother. Those are the two takeaways that I have for this.
I keep going back to that story, and just that moment where you wish you could change what happened. Instead of staying, you got in the car, and just what happened, and I hate that you had to be convinced over and over and over again by somebody, because you're right, you were isolated and you wouldn't have known the difference. And so when you were asking somebody, do I need help? And she told you again and again that you didn't. She was just trying to save herself because of what had happened. And now we know why. She wanted to stay away from the hospital and kind of wanted to be on the down low, because she was afraid she was going to get caught. And it was never about you and Gavin actually being okay. It was always about her being okay. And I hate that.
It took me a while going online with all the families and all the losses and all the midwives to realize that one of the most important things you can have is, do you have a plan B? Do you have a second option? Do you have an exit plan? Is your mindset that this is the only way it will go? Well, or your midwives, like I said, sometimes midwives, you get the birth that they want for you, not the birth that you want. And yeah, you were isolated. You didn't know how to pull the ripcord. You didn't know how to exit the situation. I mean, it's not something you thought that you would need to do. But a midwife who was ethical and responsible would have laid that option out from the very beginning. I will be with you until I can no longer be with you. And at that point, I have a plan. I can turn you over to someone who could provide that care. That's the way it should be. If a midwife tells you nothing about that from the beginning, they have no plans of letting you go, even when it's in your own best interest.
Reality is not a midwife's job. It's a fantasy. It's just how it goes. Because no one wants reality. We can say it all we want. We can say, I want someone upfront and honest. But no one likes that. Nobody wants that. Especially, pregnant women are going through stress, going through changes, because it's not just them, it's something else that's in them. And if you hear as a pregnant woman, someone's going to just be like, let's be honest with you, you're paying me a lot of money and I have no idea what I'm doing. And it could go good, it could go bad. Nobody wants to hear that. And that's what the midwife's selling point is, that they want to give you the fantasy that you're hoping, that we all hope that we're going to get. And we're not going to get that. And if people can accept being upfront, it would be an easier world, but it's not. There's people that have fought for many years with Danielle and with that midwives are great. People that had midwives and things like that, because they got that lucky, happy ending. And that's great. That's a great feeling to have, is that accomplishment. And I'm sure if we would have had that, we would be fighting and defending midwives as well. But it's reality. It's not a fantasy. And if you want to, I think everyone can agree that every pregnant woman's goal is to have a baby and to have the baby healthy. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to bring home the baby. And that's great. But there's a reality and there's a fantasy and there's a line, and it's the problem that we face every day, and it's never going to go away. It'll never go away.
I always say that they sell the fantasy. They sell the dream. They literally, 3 words, sell the dream. That's their job. That's what people want more than almost anything, especially since they've seen or think they've seen other people get that dream. And it's like, yeah, I mean, who doesn't want that dream? But the question is, are you going to get it? And someone says, yes, you can. I can show you how. And that's frankly all they really have to do to sell you on it. And once you turn over the money, then all they have to do is keep
selling it.
Keep selling it. That's it.
You know what people don't know is that not only were you on this journey of what we went through with Gavin and stuff like that, but you were the first one to actually do a video for Gavin. You did a video.
Not
for
only
Gavin.
that, a lot of people don't know. Because I struggled with hope for a long time, because I'm very hopeful. I loved fairy tales. I loved all of that, because it's nice. It's a nice feeling to have. And so when everything happened, I questioned a lot of my stuff, but I knew it was very crucial. So I wrote her a fairy tale book, and it's a big book. I don't know if you still have that book, but it's a big book, and it was very nice, and I enjoyed doing it, and it was very therapeutic to do and to go through right away. And then that's when I was like, we have to do a video. And yeah,
I saw that video. I did see that video, and that was really beautifully done. And it must have taken a lot out of you emotionally to be able to put that out there. And even for you, Danielle, to be able to just talk and say the things that you had to say. And for Michael too, it was so well done. It was a very painful thing to watch, but that's what we need more of. We need people to be able to have that strength to share.
Yeah.
That was Michael's punch in the face. Remember?
Yeah, I think with that video, it wasn't emotional as for me as it was for them. I think writing that fairy tale book was emotional. I think that was that's why it was so long. Was I wanted points in there, and it was my time to let it out and to show, and but making the video was something that was it was needed, because I think anybody, if you're gonna argue which one's better than which one. And I'm not ever going to argue with anybody that wants to do whatever they want to do with their birthing. The only thing I could say is I'm grateful that we live in a day and age where women have that option. I think as a woman, to be pregnant, it's your responsibility to know your options and to know everything. So it's not about, if you want to pick a midwife at home and everything, good luck. I applaud you. And I'm not going to judge anything that you're doing, mainly because it's your choice, but please be aware. There are, if you, like I said, if she would have just been straight up, like, it could go the other way, that would have been more respectful, because we live in a day and age where women, back then in the 1600s, when you were pregnant, you had to go to a midwife. If you decided, I don't want to go to a midwife, I want to do it my own way, you were considered a witch, or you were considered like, there wasn't an option. There was the town midwife that came to your house, and they did it their way as the town. It's the town's decision of what you do as a woman, and what you do with your baby and stuff like that. Whenever the royal stuff happened, and queens and everything were pregnant, same thing. It was how the royalty people dealt with the baby being birthed. There was no option given to a woman giving birth. Now there is option. You can choose to have a midwife. You can choose to do it at home. I mean, in a hospital. And I'm grateful that we live in a day and age that we can have that. There's more ways than just the one, and you're not considered a witch. The end. But yeah, I'm glad that you liked the video. I really appreciate that. And so, it's been a long time.
And I want people to be aware. And it's like, I cannot stress enough, doing these videos is exactly what you're saying, is having options, knowing what our choices are. Even for somebody that wants to do a home birth, maybe have your backup doctor picked out. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that would be your own thing.
Midwife. It's really the provider's responsibility to be honest about the risks. Because if you had a midwife that came straight out and said, look, even in other countries where you get risked out and midwives provide the care and home birth is a part of the system, 30% of the time, or even closer to 40, if you are a first-time mom, you're going to have to go to the hospital. And they say it like that you might think of it differently. That's being pretty honest. But it's really,
but there's no consequence. It's the thing of, if you guys come to me about advice and you need advice, I don't have consequences for whatever I tell you. I could go jump off a bridge, and then if you jumped off the bridge, well, I mean, there was no.
But you chose it, right?
You chose it. Like, there's no repercussion on me. I can say whatever I want because there's no repercussion. But everyone acts differently when they know. That's why doctors and everything, they'll tell you what they need to, because it's the law. If they don't, and you go off and jump off the bridge, then they're the ones that are going to be in trouble, because they were supposed to give you the care. But knowing, and it comes down to the whole, you don't know until the shit hits the fan for you on how you're going to react. Knowing that you don't have a consequence for whatever action you're going to take in the end is, you could do anything. You can do and say anything that you want because there is no consequence.